Remember, knowledge, it ain't free. You got to pay attention.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Ciao, Tootie. Ciao, ciao, Jim.
Hey, what's going on, John? Feels good to be back. I feel like I haven't been on for a few weeks.
Well, you went to watch your Jets win, and then you went back to back on your NFL games, and had the Vikings win impressively outright.
Yeah, just gotta toot my own horn. Those power ratings. Last 2 weeks, we've had an underdog that the rating suggested should have been a favorite, and they both won outright 2 weeks in a row. So
now interesting.
Intention.
Next week, your Jets, I believe, are playing the Vikings.
Broncos.
No, the Broncos, then the Vikings, right?
Yeah.
The Vikings is an interesting game because Sam Darnold is out there throwing the ball well. And I think he's going to have a little bit of an attitude when he comes and plays the Jets, don't you?
I hope he does. I liked him, and the Jets really screwed him. However many years ago that was. Feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah, the Jets kind of, going to be hard to ruin Aaron Rodgers, but they've ruined their share of young quarterbacks, that's for sure.
That's true. That's true.
We got a lot to talk about in the sport of kings. We'll move on from the NFL until next week, of course, when we'll come up with some games. I can only go up from where I am. I got two horrible picks so far this year, and you're on a roll. So I think I can't get any worse than I've been. But we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and we'll talk some sport of kings. You are definitely going to want to see at the absolute best Breeders' Cup seminar in the game, bar none. We are going to try and come out of the gate running, but more importantly, finish like the fastest car in the race. Things work out, we'll be shopping for Cartier diamonds. Nobody does it better. Tracking trips at Past the Wire, no matter what your level of play is. You know, people play the horses for all types of reasons. The action, the excitement, the thrill, the challenge. Some, believe it or not, even play expecting to lose. Me, I don't have that problem. I play to win and take down scores and have been doing it successfully for a long time. This is the life I've chosen. Don't go into battle alone. I do that. And you can have me and Tracking Trips as your second set of eyes. You can be a better. Let's win this fight. Patience, discipline, like a cobra, ready to strike at the right time. When we win, we celebrate, and we celebrate hard because the rewards make all of it worth it. Nobody does it better. Tracking Trips at Past the Wire. Be a member, unless of course you hate money. You know, Tracking Trips, you could be a member and ride with us all year long. But this time of year, if your heart doesn't start getting a little bit of a faster rate with that Breeders' Cup coming up, I don't know, man. Then maybe this ain't the sport for you because I'm starting to get enthusiastic about it. And what are we, 6 weeks out, I think?
Yeah. Really, now's the perfect time. You get all the last of the Breeders' Cup preps. You get the Breeders' Cup races, which you've done quite well over the last handful of years. So if there was ever a time to sign up for tracking trips, I think now would be it.
This would be a good time, and the seminar, man. We always have a blast at the seminar, unless I send out the wrong link, which I did for the Derby last year. But we got that under control, so no worries this year. We're going to send out the right link. Couple of things. I did a short on this, and it was a little different than everybody else's take. But City of Troy did kind of a I don't know, mock race workout in Ireland the other day, and it was over a synthetic track, and it wasn't against anywhere near the level of competition that he'll face in the Breeders' Cup or that he's faced in his previous races. And a lot of people were knocking it, and I had a completely different take. I thought that he did exactly what Aidan O'Brien wanted him to do. I don't think you want to have the horse, super cranked up 6 weeks out. He's trying dirt for the first time if he does go according to plan to the Classic. So what did they do? They put him behind horses. They laid back, let him get some of that synthetic kickback in his face. Let him go between horses. He accelerated on cue, way out in front of those horses, just like he was supposed to. Galloped out great. I viewed it as a very educational, schooling type of mock work that you can do when you have a barn full of horses like Aidan O'Brien. A lot of guys can't do that. You can't set out a set of 5 or 6 and have everybody do exactly what you want them to do to the benefit or the schooling of one horse. If you got 3, 4, 5, 6 horses, even 8 horses in your barn, you don't have that luxury. They're all on, certain tight schedules where they've got to do what they've got to do. Aidan is one of those barns that, he's got that luxury, and I think he used it to perfection. And I don't think that what we saw there, and generated a lot of, well, he ain't going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic off that. No, he's not. But that's not who and what he is, and I'm not saying he's going to win the Classic and that it's not a tall order, but I think to judge anything that you might see, and there were some pretty, well-respected minds out there that were knocking him, but I think to, judge anything you might see the first weekend of November off of what we saw in Ireland the other day is a big mistake. Big mistake.
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years, one of the key things that I've learned about racehorses is that they're a lot like human beings. And, a horse gets claimed and switches barns and a change of scenery, along with some, different coaching and, mentality around their training allows them to take a couple of steps up. The same
Definitely.
thing, like going back to when I used to run marathons and stuff, you need to train in the environment that you're going to find on race day. So if I knew I was going to be running a marathon somewhere where it's going to be super hot and it's not super hot in upstate New York, I got to be running in a sweatshirt. So it's no different than what the City of Troy was going through a couple of days ago, just trying to get that race-like feel. And, of course, yes, it's not the same competition. It's not the same track. It's, a lot of different variables going into it. But that, to me, is a positive that they're trying to get that specific type of work into him to prep him. And, perhaps the fact that we were able to see something like that, when else do we really ever see or hear about horses getting things done, in a super specific way in the mornings? So, everybody in horse racing has an opinion, whether right or wrong. I guess we'll find out in the next couple of weeks. But to me, I thought that was a wise move, and I thought it was overall a positive thing.
I agree, and I think another mistake that a lot of people might make is saying, well, Aiden O'Brien hasn't been all that successful. Never won a Breeders' Cup Classic, not so successful when he runs these grass horses on the dirt. Mendelssohn comes to mind recently. There's been others, but he has had success, and come close a couple of times if you go way back when. But all those stats don't really mean anything on any given Sunday, to use an NFL reference. Uh, if this is the one that's good enough to step up and get it done, and you're on him, and you could see or sniff that out, then all those ones he lost don't matter. You erase all those sins with that one, that one winner. And a barn like that, if you don't know that barn is dangerous and can win any of those big races that they enter in at any time, then this game is not for you, because they certainly can. And they don't run horses where they can't win. And as a Justify, they definitely really want to get that grade one win on the dirt. They've got it on the grass. And he's a Justify. He may like the dirt more than he likes the grass. We don't know that yet. He may move up on the dirt.
Yeah, I think I keep coming back to, been hearing a lot about this city of Troy lately, and it seems like the Breeders' Cup Classic has been the plan all along. And last year, O'Brien did something very similar. Now he ran in the turf, August Rodin, but this was the plan all along. There were quotes going back to April or May last
100%.
year where O'Brien was saying, we really think August Rodin's going to appreciate the firmer turf in the U.S. We're going to the Breeders' Cup and running on the grass. And that was the talking point 8 months ahead of the race. And it seems like this has been the plan all along. You don't plan to, at least this year, travel about 3/4 of the way around the world to throw your horse on a new surface without doing everything you can to make sure that he's going to be in the best possible position to win.
I agree 100%. And when Aiden O'Brien, John Gosden, Michael Stout, Bob Baffert, Chad Brown, those kind of guys, and there are others, but just off the top of my head, those kind of guys, target a race that far out, and they make it there without any hiccups to derail them. You got to pay attention, man. You got to pay attention. What was your take on the Cotillion and Torpedo Anna, who did get the job done?
Yeah, she got the job done. She was fine, right? I don't know that, obviously it wasn't her best effort, and clearly she didn't need her best effort to beat those horses. She was kind of trapped behind like 3 or 4 horses a lot later than she probably expected to be. And I think the win was, pure talent and determination. Could it perhaps suggest that maybe she's a little bit tired, running really on a monthly basis since the beginning of the year? Perhaps. So, we'll kind of see how she looks over the next couple of weeks. But, I thought she was fine. I was really impressed with that gun song. She's been pretty impressive the last couple of times. But yeah, I mean, she won. She's still going to be the favorite in the distaff, most likely. And if you think that this race and even the last races beforehand took a lot out of her, then you're licking your chops right about now, waiting for that. Can't wait for those next 6 weeks to come so you can bet against her, I guess.
And now I'm kind of, obviously haven't handicapped the race yet. Don't know who's in there, what the pace is going to look like, what the draw is going to look like, what, the intangibles that we'll know before the race are going to look like. But I kind of fall a little into that skeptical camp because I'm looking at a 3-year-old filly that's coming off what I view as two very, very hard races. One of which that shouldn't have really been a hard race. Uh, so, you know, I have a different approach. 99% of handicappers look at a race and handicap a race and expect the horse to do what they did last time. And they look at the last race first and the race after the race before that next. And I don't. I start at the bottom and work my way up and kind of develop a pattern and a cycle. And I do that when I look at the past performances in Formulator and when I look at Thoroughbred. And when I see a filly that's run two very hard races and now is going to be asked to run a third hard race at a different track against older fillies. I know, she ran against the boys. I'm well aware of what she did in the Travers. But I sense there could be some vulnerability there at probably a shorter price than should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You said a couple of weeks ago on one of the Saratoga shows that horses that run a fast figure, win or lose, it takes a lot out of them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, I think that, I think we found out that Travers took a lot out of her, and she just towers over the rest of the 3-year-old filly division. That it didn't matter so much that she didn't run her best, had a pretty crappy trip, and was still able to get up and win. But yeah, I would probably lean in your direction, and depending on the price, obviously, see if we could take a shot against her coming up in the Breeders' Cup.
Another trap that I would suggest you don't fall into for our viewers that are paying attention to this. Don't think that she wasn't fully cranked for that race, because I believe 100% that she was, and I'll tell you why. Ken McPeak is going for 3-year-old champion and maybe horse of the year. Okay, you don't get that losing the Cotillion. Okay, so he wanted to win that race. He's not going to send her out at 50 or 75%, wanting to win that $1 million Grade 1 race, and possibly horse of the year and possibly 3-year-old champ, and get her beat because he didn't have her ready to win. And you don't want to run her at 50 and 75% and put her in a position where she's got to gut herself in order to win, because there's a goal coming later on in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. So she was absolutely on her game, and he had her ready to fire her A game. The other thing is, the race wasn't that far after the Travers where he had the luxury of winding her down and then winding her back up. So she was there to run and there to win. So those people that are saying, she probably wasn't all the way cranked up. And if Ken McPeak was on the show, and he's been on the show a couple of times, and he's a friend of the show, and I love the guy, but if he was on here in that third box right now and say, nah, I didn't have her fully cranked up, I'd say, nah, Kenny, I got to call bullshit, man. She was cranked up. You didn't want to lose that race. There's no way you're jeopardizing that championship. And to his credit, she's been brilliantly campaigned. She's been brilliantly managed. She's become a fan favorite, and a lot of that is because of how he's made her accessible and been so transparent with her. She's got a great nickname with the Grizzly Bear. And, if you like her, that's great. She's going to be a fun single to have and root for in the distaff. And if you're a contrarian or like to go against the grain a little bit like I sometimes do, she's going to be a fun one to bet against and maybe get some, inflated value.
Yeah. I mean, if she wins the distaff, she's hands down, in my view, horse of the year.
I would be hard-pressed to argue against that.
I mean, she's already got the 3-year-old filly honors locked up. I mean, nobody's even close.
I agree with that.
it does, again, like been thinking about how she's kind of come along over the last, 5-6 months. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Nest and just the buzz around the horse, and she was just blowing everybody away. And then we got to the Breeders' Cup, and by all accounts, Nest ran a fantastic distaff, and probably ran better than I thought she was going to. But we saw her leading up that week at Keeneland, and she just looked tired and sluggish.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. We'll be at Del Mar. Maybe we'll get our eyes on Torpedo Anna. And
well, if you remember, we interviewed Mike Rapoli one morning out there, and I specifically asked him, "Aren't you a little afraid that those hard races are going to take her toll?" And he said, "No, absolutely not." But
yeah.
I was. I said, and I told him so. I said, as a handicapper, I would be a little concerned about it. And I think, I think that's a legitimate concern anytime you have a horse like that. Now, Nest, it was interesting. What about Next?
yeah.
Are we going to see him in the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be nice to see him try it.
Too bad they did away with that marathon race, because that's got his. I mean, he's already. They would have just had to give him the trophy now, no?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it probably would have been him and like 3 other horses.
I'd love to see him in the Classic.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool. This game's so hard to make money. Obviously gambling on it, but also like being an owner and being a trainer too. I'm sure it's really difficult to make money. So I've had no problem with them just finding these sort of niche spots for Next to just collect a paycheck every time. So, now it's coming to a head where, you gotta take your shot if you want it. So we'll see what they do, but yeah, it'll be cool to see them. I think they're, deciding between the Classic or the Turf, I believe. So we'll see.
One quick observation, and social media is probably a part of it, and the early retirement and quick retirement of so many horses is probably also contributory to this. But so many people now are critical of the way certain people campaign their horses. Next being one of them. You know what I mean? Oh, why don't you run here? Why don't you run there? Why do you run in all these easy spots? When I was growing up, coming around the game, managing your horse that way and finding spots where they can win was like considered an art, an artful part of training. That was considered brilliant. Where now it's kind of frowned upon, because everybody wants rivalries and everybody wants to run fillies against boys and everybody wants to run in all these different spots that are tougher. And I think part of that is because we have, at least appearance-wise, I don't necessarily agree that we do have. I think we've got a lot of really talented horses over the past 10, 15 years. But people seem to long for more now and longer careers, and I think that makes them kind of want to see more from the horses while they're around. But I don't look at it like that. You know what I mean? I think managing your horse brilliantly is a clever form of artfulness. I mean, Justify. Oh, how can you consider him a great? He only had so few starts. Yeah, well, he broke the Apollo curse, which has been around longer than anybody can even remember, and he won the Triple Crown. You know what I mean? How many times you want him to run? 20 to make you happy? No, yeah. He's their horse. You like to think that people try and do and know what's right for their horses, and I'm not so opposed to cleverly spotting, one's own horse and finding good spots for them to win and run in. My take on the Pennsylvania Derby is probably a little bit different than everybody else's. And I watched it 3 times. I watched it once live, then I watched a replay, and then I watched the replay again this morning because I knew we were going to do this show today, and I just wanted to make sure my observation was right. As if an observation can be wrong. It's your observation. Doesn't have to be right if you... It's an opinion kind of thing, But in hindsight, who impressed me most in that race?
Who was the horse that finished second?
Stronghold.
Yeah. Him.
No, it was the horse that finished third, Dragoon Guard.
Oh, really? I thought I
I'll tell
was
you why.
okay.
All right. And again, my opinion is always, my second set of eyes tracking trips is often different than how other people see things. But here's what I saw. I saw a horse who I didn't like going into the race at all. And I said so on the show. We did a preview show. I said, don't like him at all. He's had nothing but cakewalk trips on the front end, unchallenged, walk the dog, waltz races, all dressed up, not going to get that kind of trip. Going to going to get cooked on the front end, find out what he's made of. I thought he would be on the front end. He wasn't. He was well off the pace. Lightly raised horse, never been in that position on a quirky park surface that plays funny. Okay. Now all of a sudden he's off the pace. He's taking dirt in his face against better horses than he's run with before, more experienced, seasoned horses than he's run with before. And what does he do? He rallies for third and was running at the end and digging in at the end when he had every right to say, you know what? Next time, this ain't my day. I ain't on the lead. I ain't where I'm used to. I ain't where I was taught to be. I ain't where I like to be, and just pack it in. And he didn't. He showed some guts. He showed some gameness. He showed a new dimension, and he showed some fight. And coming out of that race, I says, you know what? I underestimated this horse. Had he gotten the lead, he might have run them off their feet. And had he gotten to a stalking position instead of where he was, he might have been a handful turning for home if he took the lead and didn't have to make up, a dozen lengths to get, anywhere into contention. So Dragoon Guard impressed me the most coming at it at race. Now, I like Stronghold. I think he had a wide trip. Seize the Gray has already shown us in the Pat Day Mile and the Preakness that when he's in the mood and things go right, he can win a big race. Hard to figure out when he's going to do it, but he can do it,
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the most frustrating thing for me. That opening quarter mile was like 23 and 4. You're like, okay, honest enough. But then that second quarter, they slowed it all the way down to like 49 and a half. And at that point, you knew it was going to be very difficult for somebody to make up ground on him and get past him in the stretch. A little annoying that nobody kind of challenged him.
I thought there was going to be a lot of pace, and there just wasn't.
It was a grade 1 race for $1 million.
I know.
And they just let him walk out there. I thought Stronghold was impressive. I mean, he went off at 7-1.
Did he drift up to 7-1? I thought
it
was 5-1 going in the gate, and I thought, wow, this is like a Christmas gift.
Yeah,
and I did like him.
Yeah, I thought he ran really well. And
now he's heading to the Breeders' Cup Mile, not the Classic, as I've been told.
Yeah. It sounds like Seize the Gray might be going to the Breeders' Cup Mile too. And I, after the race, I texted my brother that, in my view, because, I know everything about campaigning horses and putting them in the right spots. I said to him that I thought that the Breeders' Cup Mile would be a better fit than the Classic at 1.25 miles for Seize the Gray. But to your point too, it's like, it's hard to know when this horse is going to be able to get an uncontested lead, because every time he doesn't run well.
He did win the Pat Day Mile from a stalking position, so he did come a little off the pace that day. So he's just a hard horse for me to figure. And let me tell you something. Wayne Lukas, as great as he is, and I mean, I'm not knocking him in by any means, at 90 years old, still doing what he does, and with his resume is just unbelievable. But his horses at this stage of his career tend to be inconsistent and hard to figure when they're going to show up with their A game. That filly a year or two ago, I forget her name off the top of my head, but he had that really good filly that, when she would fire and bring her A game, she was just a handful, and, it was hard to figure out when she was going to bring it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a little bit of a perplexing race. Probably coming out of that, I was probably most impressed with Stronghold. The rest of them, Dragoon Guard, fine. I mean, the rest of them are just
He made up a lot of ground into what you said was a slow pace. He really did.
yeah. The rest of the horses, no.
Unmatched wisdom was a disappointment for me because I thought he was sitting in a perfect spot. I really thought Pratt had him in the right spot, and he just didn't have enough in the tank when the race started.
Yeah, he looked good. I think I'm just trying to remember the race correctly, but it looked like he was on the move going around the far turn and then just kind of like leveled off and just didn't have enough to get that last eighth of a mile, it seemed. I don't know. I wonder where that horse ends up. And he's taken 2 shots now in grade 1 company and taking a lot of money in both, and was kind of, obviously the Travers was 1.25 miles. This was 1.125 miles. And it just seemed like that last eighth of a mile or so in both races just seemed to get to him. So I'll be interested to see where this horse comes back. I don't know, maybe an allowance race or something.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that would be the right move to give him a confidence builder and get him back on those winning ways, and see just what he's made of. And good time of year. A lot more racing to happen before the Breeders' Cup. We got Keeneland coming up. That Keeneland will offer some clues as to what we might see out at Del Mar. A couple of big spots at Aqueduct. A couple of big spots at Santa Anita going into the big dance. But things are starting to take form, take shape, and sort themselves out.
Yeah, I think I saw this morning that Derma Sotogake and Ushbe Tesoro are going head to head on Wednesday.
Yeah. Forever Young, I think, is coming straight to the Classic. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I actually looked him up the other day to see if he's done anything, and I don't know if Equibase tracks workouts.
I don't believe he has. I think he's coming straight to the Classic.
Yeah, I haven't even seen like a published workout from him, but I don't know if Equibase would track that, coming from Japan. But I mean, that's kind of concerning.
I would say yes, but the Japanese training and the Japanese horses is kind of shown us all up lately, and all the questions we've had, they've kind of said doesn't matter. I mean, we've watched some of their horses train and say it's ridiculous how they're training this horse. What are they doing? And then they come out and run well or they win.
Yeah.
So if that guy's bringing him in fresh, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be exciting to see him run again. I mean, his Derby was like phenomenal.
It really was. I mean, the Derby, when you think about it, there's 3 horses could have won the Derby depending on how things went. Sierra Leone, Forever Young, or Mystic Dan. Any one of them could have won the Derby depending on how things went or didn't go.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks too what that older male horse division shakes out. Like Arthur's Ride. I don't know who won the
National Treasure. You've got,
I mean, National Treasure got beat by a whisker in the dirt mile last year to Cody Fish. Perhaps he goes back there.
Who's a horse who's on my radar? Senor Buscador.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I liked him at a big price that day at Gulfstream Park when he won. Then he kind of showed he was, top class when he won in Saudi Arabia. After I think he ran back in Dubai as well. And then he took a break and he came back in a 7 furlong sprint at Del Mar, which is where you would not expect him to show up. And he made up a lot of ground. And now he's sitting quiet. waiting for the classic, I think. He may be a horse that's completely forgotten, completely overlooked, and being quietly, sneakily pointed for a race that we know he's shown he has the ability to win. And if National Treasure goes in the mile and the 3-year-olds aren't as good against older as we suspect they might be, he might be the older horse waiting in the wings to pick those 3-year-olds up in the last 8th or 16th of a mile.
Yeah.
And Junior Alvarado doesn't get the right kind of credit, but I think he's one really, really strong finisher if he's on him.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him in the Pegasus World Cup, and he almost got there.
Absolutely.
So, we'll see.
All right. Sounds like a wrap. So we got 3 good takeaways. Torpedo Anna might be vulnerable. Senor Buscador might be a sneaky classic horse. And City of Troy, underestimate off that Ireland work at your own risk. Those are my takeaways.
Yeah. I agree. I think Torpedo Anna will be the most interesting thing to me to see over the next couple of weeks, and just see how much money she ends up taking in the distaff.
Right. If I owe anybody a hat and I promised you a hat, remind me, put it in the comments, because we got some hats and I forgot. I know there's 2 people I said I would send hats to, and I don't remember who they are. I said email me. I never got no emails, so you kind of got to let me know who you are. Otherwise, I can't send a hat to somebody I don't know who it is. So let me know who it is. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Big Race Jim, always a pleasure.
All right.
Stay hot with the NFL. And we'll be back later in the week with a preview of some weekend action.
Nobody does it better.